Hey, welcome to Dallas Fantasy Sports Club, where fantasy sports is everything. This is part two to defense. Week one, that's all we're focusing on is defense. One position at a time. We're going to focus on defense. Some of the topics we were talking about was looking for value, but don't get too cheap. I mean, don't go cheap with the defense. Somebody like the Raiders, who may or may not produce something, even though they're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have Andy Dalton. That's the name I couldn't think of. Even though he can get a little gun hoe and start throwing a lot of interceptions. So you don't want to always go for the cheapest. You also don't want to go for the most expensive. You want to find the value. And in some games, you just got to look harder. I mean, you got to find that value. But some more topics were sacks. That's 37% of the points when you're doing defense, special teams on DraftKings or FanDuels. So that's why I was talking about in part one that you want to look for sacks because it's the most predictable thing that you can see you can average. I mean, the team that's getting sacks is going to keep on getting sacks. That core, that defensive line, if they busting through, DeMarcus Ware coming off that corner and putting pressure, then he's gonna get one or two sacks if that's what he's averaging. So sacks is 37% of the points. So, if 1 to 5 sacks per game, that's the most predictable stat as well. So when you're looking for sacks, they're going to fall between 1 and 5 sacks per game. But those points add up. The defensive stats ranking, when you're setting up defenses and you're going through, you want to start from the bottom and work your way up to the top. So if I was looking at the Raiders, week one versus Cincinnati, the defensive stats that I would mostly be concerned with would be touchdowns, interceptions, fumbles, sacks, safeties, and then kick returns. Kick returns is not, they don't happen that often, since they changed the rules. And, it's not for the concussion rules where you're not kicking, you're kicking from the 50 or something like that, and that's why it's more touchbacks. So it's going to be less kickoff returns, but punt returns you can look for. Touchdowns, that's hard to predict. That's going to be on interceptions. That's fumbles is a rarity as well. Like I said, sacks is really important. Focus on your sacks. It's the easiest to predict. It's the most predictable. Okay. Also, you want to target quarterbacks that are prone to sacks. Quarterbacks that have horrible release times, that hold the ball too long. Rookie quarterbacks. They don't make decisions fast. They don't have the mechanics down. So you want to target quarterbacks that just don't have good mechanics. During the preseason games, you can watch for these guys. Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. These are guys that are going to have high turnovers. So you want to target those games that they're playing. You would want to target someone like Kansas City. You can see where Alex Smith. He's not throwing a high amount of passes. He's a veteran. Kansas City is doing that ground and pound. So don't look for a lot of turnovers in that game because they're running Jamal Charles. So Alex Smith is somebody I wouldn't want to go with Houston defense just because Houston's a real good defense. They were like number 3 or 4, I think, last year. But, Alex Smith is not throwing a lot. He doesn't have any big-time targets that he's throwing to. He's basically Travis Kelce, which is short little passes. But his main thing is they're running Jamal Charles. He's touching the ball at a high level. As long as he's healthy, then don't look for Alex Smith. Andy, the quarterback, Andy, he tends to slow down the game. Last year they had the least amount of offensive plays because it just weren't. They just were just running the ball. They were just trying to beat you by 3 or 4 points. So, so I would avoid, and Alex Smith. So a lot of these teams you can look at, you want to make a list and eliminate just a lot of teams like that based on the quarterback because Alex Smith, he's just really not going to give you a lot of production. Somebody like Andy Dalton, Cincinnati, and Oakland game. Andy Dalton, he can be hot, he can be not. He's going to get back there and throw, depending on how the running game is. They gravitated towards the end of the season towards running, just because Andy Dalton was turning over the ball so much. But you want to look for like Marcus Mariota. He's a rookie coming out of Oregon. It takes time for rookies to get adjusted. So Marcus, Jameis Winston, I think Blake Bortles is going to be pretty good this year. Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's somebody you can target as far as defenses. Mark Sanchez. Hey, it's Mark Sanchez butt fumble. You can't really say no more than that. Josh McCown in Cleveland. It's a new system. Brian Hoyer in Houston, or just depending on who starts. I think it was Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to start in New Jersey. I'm sorry, with the Jets. So you could target Ryan Fitzpatrick, Nick Foles. Hey, he was a turnover machine last year, and he's coming off that injury. EJ Manuel as well. These are just names that just stick out right away that you really want to keep an eye on. Let's see who else we got up here at the top of the list. Somebody you would want to avoid, Aaron Rodgers. Hey, it's Aaron Rodgers, man. He's at the top of the list for a reason. His completions, his turnovers. They got a system in place. Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is another quarterback that has a lot of high turnovers. That's good for your interceptions, but that's not where you're going to win just on interceptions. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, I would avoid Brees. Russell Wilson's not going to throw that much. Cam Newton's worth keeping an eye on. Matt Ryan, not so much. He's kind of solid. Ryan Tannehill, this is going to be a bounce back year for him. Tony Romo, they're really limiting his throwing, so I wouldn't look for a lot of turnovers. Tony Romo last year, he was first in completion, 70%. Phillip Rivers, that's something to keep an eye on. That San Diego, Detroit game. Matthew Stafford. He's got Megatron. If Megatron's healthy, you might want to avoid that. Colin Kaepernick. They got a new coach, new offensive system. That's somebody you can keep an eye on versus Minnesota. That could be something you can target. Jay Cutler. Hey, Cutler's going to throw interceptions guaranteed. He, hey, that's something you definitely want to keep an eye on. Even against Green Bay. Jay Cutler he lost Brandon Marshall this year, so his only target's going to be, mainly Alshon Jeffries. So look for them to shut down Alshon Jeffries, and you can expect Jay Cutler to just throw a lot more interceptions. Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know, it's coming off that rookie year. He could be a lot better this year with AP in the background. Carson Palmer, Robert Griffin, that's somebody you want to keep at the top of the list. Geno Smith, whenever he comes back, if he makes the season opener, that's somebody you want to target. We already talked about the rest. Passing defenses over rushing defenses. That's something you want to target. Passing defenses. If you want interceptions, you want sacks, you want quarterbacks that's going to throw. Thanks for tuning in. I guess we're gonna have to make a part 3.